I laughed when I saw the zero. Not a polite laugh. Not the kind where you think maybe there's been a mistake and everything will sort itself out in a few minutes. I mean a real, full laugh, the kind that starts in your chest and just takes over. My neighbor probably heard it through the wall. My name is Leonard Merritt. I'm 63 years old, retired CFO, widower, Phoenix, Arizona. And that Sunday morning, I was sitting at my kitchen table with a cold cup of coffee, staring at my laptop screen, whilst looking at a savings account balance of exactly $0. Previous balance, $187,400. Current balance, $0. I closed the laptop, opened it again. Still zero. So I laughed. Because I spent 32 years at a construction company managing other people's money, catching errors, stopping bad deals before they closed. And here I was, zero. I pulled up the full transaction history. October 24th, $90,000 transferred to Nicole Merritt, account ending 3782. October 24th, $62,000 transferred to Desert Star Capital, LLC. October 25th, $35,400 wire to Lux Event Planning, Azid. $187,400, gone in 48 hours. The name Desert Star Capital LLC meant nothing to me. I'd never heard of it. My phone rang. The screen said, Nicole. I answered. Her voice was bright, almost excited. Dad, I have the best news. Kyle and I are getting married this Saturday, and we bought a house, 2943 Canyon View Circle in Tempe. You're going to love it. I didn't say a word. I knew that address. That was my rental property, and the one I'd owned for 9 years. The one that brought in $3,200 a month and was supposed to carry me through retirement alongside the savings account now sitting at zero. Nicole, I said, that's my house. I know, Dad. That's the best part. I used the power of attorney you signed back in September. Remember? When you were in the hospital. I took care of everything. I kept my voice even. I never signed a power of attorney giving you control over my finances. Yes, you did. You just don't remember. She said it the way you talk to someone who's getting forgetful. Calm. Patient. Like she'd been practicing it. I remembered September just fine. Pneumonia. Banner Desert Medical Center. 3 days with a fever that hit 104. I could barely lift my head off the pillow. Nicole had come by once, on the second day, with a folder. Said it was insurance paperwork and medical consent forms. I signed 4 pages without reading them. I was running a fever, and I trusted my daughter. I'll call you back, I said. I hung up. Sat there for about 30 seconds. Then I opened my laptop and started making calls. Here's what most people don't understand about being robbed by someone you love. The anger doesn't come first. It's more like a switch flips somewhere in the back of your brain, and you just start moving. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't crying. I was running through a checklist. I need to tell you a little about how I got here because none of this makes sense without it. Susan and I were married for 31 years. She was a school librarian in Gilbert. I handled the numbers. She handled everything else. Nicole was born in 1990, our only child. We tried for more. Didn't happen. Nicole was enough. Funny, sharp, stubborn in a way that reminded me of Susan from the day she learned to talk. Susan died in February 2021. Car accident on I-10, on her way home from a teachers' conference in Tucson. A truck driver fell asleep at the wheel. No, she didn't suffer. That's what they told me. I'm not sure that makes it easier. After she was gone, I threw myself into work for about a year. Then I retired. I was 61, tired. And grief does something to your focus that no one warns you about. The bank gave me a plaque. I put it in a drawer. Nicole was around those first few months. She helped me box up Susan's things, came over on weekends, checked in. Then slowly, the calls dropped off. Once a week, then twice a month, then less. And I told myself she had her own life. I was 61 years old, and I wasn't going to be the father who guilted his daughter into babysitting him. So I let the distance grow, and I sat with the quiet, and got used to it. I started volunteering at the Phoenix Public Library, financial literacy workshops for seniors twice a month. It kept me busy, kept me feeling useful. I'd stand in front of a room of 65 and 70-year-olds and walk them through warning signs of financial fraud. How to spot a forged document. Besantim. How to protect a power of attorney from being abused. The irony of that is not lost on me. Nicole and I were talking maybe twice a month by the time October rolled around. Sometimes I called and she didn't pick up. I'd get a text later. Busy at work, I'll call you back. She never did. I stopped taking it personally, or I tried to. She'd introduced me to Kyle Redford back in April. He showed up at my house for dinner one Saturday. Tall, well-dressed, firm handshake, expensive watch. Said he was a freelance financial consultant. Said they'd been dating 3 months and he wanted to meet me properly. He talked easily about real estate, investment structures, market trends. Too easily, looking back. But Nicole looked happy, and I wanted to believe that. 3 months later, she called to tell me they were engaged. I told her I was happy for her. I meant it. I should have asked more questions. I know that now. My daughter emptied my bank account and sold my house for her wedding. Then she found out I was watching the whole time. First call was to Philip Strand. Elder abuse attorney, office on Camelback Road. I'd heard his name years back from a colleague at the firm. Left a message at 8 a.m. He called back before 9. By 2 p.m., I was sitting across from him with a folder of printed bank statements. I walked him through everything. The withdrawals, the dates, with the POA I'd supposedly signed while running a 104-degree fever in a hospital bed. The rental house at 2943 Canyon View Circle, already listed under a pending sale for $412,000 to a couple named the Garcias. Closing date, November 5th, 9 days away. Philip listened without interrupting. When I finished, he set down his pen and said, "We have enough to move. Let me make some calls." While he was on the phone, I called Gloria Hutchins. We'd crossed paths years ago when she ran the fraud detection team at Desert Valley Bank. She picked up on the second ring. "Leonard, I was actually about to contact you. I flagged unusual activity on your accounts this morning." She froze everything within the hour. No further transactions could clear. She also opened an internal fraud investigation and flagged the account for Elder Financial Abuse Review. Then, I called Henry Aldrich at Southwest Escrow Group. The $412,000 from the house sale was sitting in escrow, 11 days from transfer. Henry pulled up the file, heard 2 sentences of explanation, and froze the account before I finished talking. 3 calls. 3 doors shut. That evening I drove to the Gilbert Police Department and filed a report with Detective Carl Barton, Fraud Division. He was the kind of investigator who doesn't waste words. Took notes, asked precise questions, didn't editorialize. I handed him the printed bank statements and a copy of the POA document Philip had already flagged as suspicious. Barton looked at the notary signature. "Donna Stafford, we'll run this." I'd already checked. Donna Stafford's notary commission had expired on July 31st. Her son told me she'd been in Portland visiting family the entire week Nicole brought those papers to my hospital room. She hadn't been within 1,200 miles of Phoenix on the date listed on that document. Barton wrote that down. "I'll get started tonight." On the drive home, I called Arthur Nolan. Art and I had worked together for 25 years, him in commercial lending, me on the finance side. We'd both retired around the same time. He was at my house in 20 minutes, a six-pack under his arm, sitting at my kitchen table while I laid out the whole picture. He let me talk. When I finished, he opened 2 beers, pushed one toward me, and said, "What do you need from me?" "Stay close," I said. "I may need a witness at some point." Done. That was Art. Never made anything complicated. To us, the private investigator's report came back 48 hours later. George Fielding, 34 pages on Kyle Redford. I sat at the same kitchen table and read it front to back. The summary page alone stopped me cold. Denver, 2022. Kyle had convinced a woman named Lorraine Peck to wire $79,000 into a real estate investment vehicle he called Meridian Growth Partners. The fund didn't exist. The properties didn't exist. Kyle left Denver 2 weeks after she transferred the money. Police report filed. No arrest. Kyle was already gone. San Diego, 2023. A nurse named Evelyn Ward. $54,000. Kyle told her his business partner had pulled out of a deal at the last minute, and he needed bridge capital for 30 days. She gave him her savings. He was gone in a week. Police report filed. Classified as a civil matter. No arrest. I turned to page 14. Financial profile. Outstanding warrant in Maricopa County. Failure to pay child support. $36,000 owed to a woman named Nadine Solis. They had a daughter together, Gracie, 4 years old. Kyle hadn't made a single payment in 3 years. The warrant had been sitting active since June of last year. I turned to page 19. Kyle's parents, the couple Nicole had introduced me to at a dinner back in April. Richard and Carol Redford, warm, well-dressed, talked proudly about their property management company out of Scottsdale. I'd believed every word, shook their hands, made small talk about the Diamondbacks. Real names: Bernard Croft, 59, retired car salesman from Mesa. Shirley Dowd, 55, part-time waitress and community theater actress from Tempe. Kyle had found them through an online gig listing, paid them $2,200 each for 2 dinners. Given them a script. They'd practiced their lines. I set the report down and looked at Susan's photo on the shelf across the room. I thought about that April dinner, how natural it had all seemed, and how I'd come home that night and felt, for the first time in a while, like maybe things were going to be okay. Like Nicole had found someone solid. Like there was going to be a family again. The whole thing had been staged from the first handshake. 2 days before the wedding, Nicole called again. Her voice was different this time. Harder. Rehearsed. "You need to drop the lawsuit, Dad. Unfreeze the accounts. Release the escrow on the house. All of it. Or what? Or Kyle and I file a petition for guardianship. We tell the court you're showing signs of cognitive decline. That you signed documents and can't remember doing it. That you're not capable of managing your own financial affairs anymore." I could hear Kyle in the background. Low voice, steady, feeding her the lines. "A memory care facility runs about $8,500 a month," she said. "We'd make sure you were comfortable." I let that sit for a second. $8,500 a month. My own money. Paying for them to lock me away. It was a clean plan. Legal enough on the surface. Cruel underneath. "Nicole," I said, "before you file anything, there are some things you should know about the man you're marrying." "I don't want to hear Lorraine Peck. Denver, 2022, $79,000. He told her it was a real estate fund. It wasn't. He was gone 2 weeks after she wired the money. Silence. Evelyn Ward, San Diego, 2023, $54,000. Bridge capital for a deal that didn't exist. Same playbook. You're making this up. His parents' names are Bernard Croft and Shirley Dowd. He found them on a gig website. Paid them $2,200 each to have dinner with us and pretend to be his family. A long pause. And he has a 4-year-old daughter named Gracie. Her mother is Nadine Solis. He owes $36,000 in back child support, and there's a warrant out for his arrest. I heard Nicole's voice pull away from the phone. Muffled, shaking. Kyle, who is Nadine Solis? The line went loud for a few seconds, his voice rising, hers cutting through, and then it went dead. My daughter emptied my bank account and sold my house for her wedding. Then she found out I was watching the whole time I didn't go to the wedding. But I drove past the venue at 6 p.m. on Saturday and parked half a block down. Sat in the car with the engine off. The place had string lights along the entrance, white flowers in tall vases by the door, maybe 50 people on the lawn dressed up and holding drinks. Then Nicole walked out. White dress, hair done, flowers in her hands. She was smiling, before Susan died. Kyle stood at the far before Susan died. Kyle stood at the far end of the lawn in a dark suit, watching her walk toward him like he'd already won. I sat there for about 10 minutes. Then I drove home. I looked at Susan's photo on the shelf when I walked in. Same photo that's been there since the week after the funeral. The two of us at the Grand Canyon. I left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out loud. I checked out and left, I said out left, I said out loud. I checked out and she drifted, and I let the gap get too wide, and somebody walked right into it. Susan's smile didn't answer. It never does. I keep the photo there anyway. 2 days after the wedding, Shirley Dowd called me. She'd been crying. Said she'd seen my name connected to a fraud case in a local news brief and realized what she'd helped Kyle set up. Said she thought it was a harmless prank. He'd told her it was a surprise for his girlfriend, that Nicole's real parents had died young, and he wanted to give her a family experience before proposing. I needed the money, she said. It was $2,200 for 2 dinners. I didn't ask enough questions, and I should have. She said she'd kept everything, the contract Kyle gave her. Well, you need me to, she said. I have a you need me to, she said. I have a father. He's 74. If someone did this to him... She stopped. Couldn't finish the sentence. I told her to call Philip Strand in the morning. The preliminary hearing was November 16th at the Maricopa County Superior Court downtown. Art drove me. We got there early, found seats in the front row of the gallery. Kyle was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed in front of him. No watch this time, no suit. The easy confidence I'd seen at that April dinner, the firm handshake, the smooth talk about cap rates and investment structures, was completely gone. He looked smaller in that room. He scanned the gallery when they brought him in and found me in the front row. His jaw tightened. I held his eyes and didn't look away. Bernard Croft testified first, and he walked the court through the arrangement. The gig listing, the $2,200 payment, the script Kyle gave him, 2 rehearsed dinners. He brought the contract and his text message history with Kyle. His voice was steady, but he wouldn't look at Nicole. Shirley Dowd followed. Same story, same evidence. She had the Venmo receipt and a printed copy of the fake backstory Kyle had written for them to memorize. When the prosecutor asked if she understood what she'd helped facilitate, Shirley said yes and looked directly at me. I'm sorry, Mr. Merritt, I genuinely am. Lorraine Peck testified by video from Denver. She spoke carefully, no drama, just facts. The investment pitch, the wire transfer of $79,000, the moment 2 weeks later when Kyle's number went dead and his email bounced. Her hands weren't quite steady on the desk in front of her. Evelyn Ward came on right after. San Diego, $54,000, the same structure, the same disappearing act. What she said she'd spent the better part of a year trying to get law enforcement in 2 states to treat it as a criminal matter rather than a civil dispute. Nadine Solis testified in person. She sat in the witness chair with her hands folded, described raising Gracie alone for 4 years on a physical therapy assistant's salary, the court order Kyle had ignored since the day it was issued, the $36,000 in back support that had never come. Kyle stared at the table the entire time she spoke, and didn't look up once. Judge Beverly Kemp reviewed everything without rushing. 8 counts. Bail is set at $400,000. 8 counts. Bail is set at $400,000. Kyle's public defender leaned over and whispered something. Kyle went pale. He didn't have $400,000. He stayed in custody. Outside the courthouse, Detective Barton pulled me aside. He said the arrest warrant for Nicole was going through in 48 hours. Conspiracy, forgery, elder financial abuse. The prosecutor, Sandra Lowe, was prepared to offer a deal. Full cooperation, complete testimony against Kyle, and she'd recommend a suspended sentence. No jail time if Nicole came through. If Nicole refused, she'd go to trial on her own charges. I drove home and sat in the kitchen. Art made coffee. Neither of us said much. Around 9 p.m., my phone buzzed. A text from a number I didn't recognize. Dad, I need to talk to you. Please. I stared at it for a while. Then I typed back. Tomorrow. 2 p.m. The coffee place on Scottsdale Road near your apartment. I'll be there. She replied with one word. Okay. I set the phone down and finished my coffee. She was already there when I arrived. No makeup, hair pulled back, gray sweater, jeans. She was holding a coffee with both hands and staring at the table. She looked like she hadn't slept in 3 days, which she probably hadn't. I sat down across from her. Neither of us said anything for a moment. I'm sorry. Dad. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I know that doesn't fix anything. Tell me why, I said. She looked up. Because I was angry and broke. And Kyle made it sound simple. He said you had more than enough. He said you'd want to help me if you knew how bad things had gotten, and that the only reason I hadn't asked was pride. She stopped. I told myself it was almost the same as asking. It wasn't. I let her talk. She owed me that much, and she knew it. And she told me she was $28,000 in debt. Credit cards, back rent, a car payment she'd been rolling forward for 8 months. She'd been too ashamed to tell me how far down she'd gotten. After Susan died, she said, I'd gone somewhere she couldn't reach. Not physically. I was still in the house, still answered the phone. But something had closed off. She said talking to me after Susan passed felt like talking to someone through a screen door. Present, but not really there. She wasn't wrong. I kept waiting for you to ask how I was doing, she said. Not about work or the apartment. Actually ask. You never did. I didn't say anything to that, because she was right and we both knew it. Kyle found the gap, she said quietly, and I let him. I reached across the table and put my hand over hers. She flinched a little, then held on. I'm not going to tell you it's fine, I said. It's not fine. But you're still my daughter. That part doesn't change. She started crying then, not dramatic, just quiet tears she kept wiping away with the back of her hand. We sat there for a while without talking. At 2:45, Detective Barton walked in. Nicole had known he was coming. She'd called him that morning. She stood up, steadied herself, and nodded at him. I'm ready, she said. He didn't cuff her. Small mercy. He walked out with her, and I stood at the window and watched them cross the parking lot to his unmarked sedan. She didn't look back, and I drove home and sat in the kitchen with the lights off for a while. The trial ran 3 days in January. Kyle pleaded not guilty on all 8 counts. His public defender tried to put the fraud on Nicole. Said she'd acted independently, said Kyle had trusted her and been blindsided like everyone else. The jury took 4 hours, guilty on all 8 counts. I testified on the second day. Sandra Lowe asked me to walk through the fraud step by step. I did. Dates, amounts, account numbers, the sequence of events from the hospital in September to the frozen accounts in October. The kind of detail you either have or you don't. Then she asked me how I felt about my daughter's role in what happened. I looked over at Nicole. She was watching me, hands folded, jaw set, braced for whatever I was going to say. Kyle found the tools, I said. Nicole handed him the keys, but I left the door open after her mother died. I went quiet. And she went looking for someone who'd actually talk to her. I'm not excusing what she did. I'm just saying the whole story is longer than the bank statements. The courtroom was quiet for a moment. Nicole looked down at the table. Judge Beverly Kemp sentenced Kyle to 4 years in the Arizona Department of Corrections. Full restitution, $187,400 to me, and $36,000 in back child support to Nadine Solis, to be paid from prison wages and any future earnings under a court order that didn't expire. Nicole received 14 months, followed by 5 years of supervised probation, and was ordered to pay restitution jointly with Kyle. Her attorney had argued for a suspended sentence based on her cooperation. The judge acknowledged it, gave her 14 months anyway. Nicole nodded when the sentence came down. Didn't argue, didn't cry, just nodded. I visited her 3 weeks after she was transferred to the Perryville Women's Facility. She came into the visitation room in a tan jumpsuit and sat down across from me, picked up the phone on her side of the plexiglass. Hi, Dad. Hi, sweetheart. She pressed her hand flat against the glass. I pressed mine against hers. 14 months, she said. I know. I'll be here when it's done. She nodded and looked at the table. We talked for an hour about nothing much. The weather, what she was reading, whether the food was as bad as it looked. Normal things. It felt strange and it felt right at the same time. And the first real letter came in month 9. She wrote that she'd been in therapy twice a week and had started to understand that the anger she'd carried toward me after Susan died wasn't really about the money, and wasn't really even about me. It was about not knowing how to grieve alongside someone who had also gone quiet. She said she'd spent a long time looking for someone to blame for the fact that Susan was gone, and I'd been the easiest target because I was still there. She said she wasn't asking me to forget any of it, just to know she finally saw it clearly. I wrote back the same week. I told her I'd been sitting with my own part in it. That grief isn't a reason for the distance I let grow between us, even if it's an explanation. That I should have picked up the phone more, asked how she was doing, actually listened. I told her 5 months left was nothing, that I'd keep the lights on. These days I still teach the financial literacy workshops at the Phoenix Public Library. Elder abuse prevention, twice a month. I tell my story in the general shape of it. No names, just the outline. I talk about how the POA documents work, how to set transaction alerts on your bank accounts, how to register a trusted contact with your financial institution so they get notified if something looks wrong. After a session last spring, a man in his early 70s waited until everyone else had left. He told me his son had been pulling money from a joint account for almost a year. Said he hadn't told anyone because he was embarrassed. Didn't want people to think he couldn't handle his own affairs. I gave him Philip Strand's card. Call him tomorrow morning, I said. First thing. Don't wait. The man's eyes got wet. He folded the card carefully and put it in his shirt pocket. I thought about the morning I laughed at the zero. I thought about all the calls I almost didn't make because I was too proud, or too tired, or too afraid of what making them would mean for me and my daughter. I made them anyway. That's the whole story. I also set up a small fund using part of the restitution as it came in, $5,000 to start. Named it after Susan, the Susan Merritt Elder Protection Fund. It helps other victims cover legal fees and basic expenses while their cases work through the system. Art helped me file the paperwork. Took about an hour. Susan would have done the same thing, probably faster. As the loneliest thing isn't an empty bank account, it's realizing the distance between you and your own child was the open door that let everything else in. I didn't just fight to get my money back. I fought because a father who stops showing up doesn't get to be surprised when his daughter stops calling, and I wasn't willing to let that be the last chapter.